social media platforms: YouTube UTV124, Facebook UTV124, Instagram UTV124, Twitch UTV124, TikTok UTV_124, and Flow TV channel 124. Remember, UTV TV for you.
I can't
Welcome to Mornings, everyone, with me, Tresha Lionel. It is Tuesday, September 14th, 2021. I hope so far you guys are having a good day wherever you are. If you're at home or at work or doing whatever, I hope that you're having a good one. And thank you very much for joining us right before what's supposed to be lunchtime here. To those of you listening to us on our radio station partner, that is Hits FM 92.1 and 91.1, good morning to you, and I hope that whatever you're doing, that you guys are keeping safe. If you are watching us on television on channel 124 on Flow, that is UTV Underground Television, we also bid you a good day. And of course, for those of you on the different social media platforms, like we do every single weekday at 11, streaming there live. I appreciate it. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the discourse. And I also hope that you guys are having a good one. If you're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all of them, then we appreciate that. We're going to continue a little bit in the same vein as yesterday. Oh, what's an era gone? I think need to look at some of the things that people want to do, especially those in the United Workers' Party camp. Bear with me, we won't stay on it long, but it's just a document that I saw circulating, and when I did do my investigations, I realized who it was sent from, and who leaked it out and all of that sort of thing. I'm telling you, for some reason some of the flubbles think they can talk to me about what they're going through. Like I said, some of them haven't been paid by people who thought they would have been ministers or would have won or whatever it was, and they need all the help that they can get trying to get paid in that way. But this one today, it has to do with the former mayor of Castries. People are still reeling from that loss, and I think you can almost get an understanding, because you could put on a brave face for the cameras, you could speak and do what you can to try to salvage some of your pride, but in this letter it shows one either Peterson Francis is hiding whatever literary prowess that he has that we have no idea that he had or whatever, or Palikibachi. But let's get into it. Let's watch what's going on there with this first document, and that is to the chairman, Pinkley Francis. It says it was sent on the 14th of August 2021. This correspondence is addressed to you out of the greatest concern for our party, the United Workers' Party, and my sincerest wish is for it to be received in the spirit that it was intended. We can agree that it is clear that there is much work to be done within the ranks of the party, and this work may not be best performed by the current executive team, as questions of bias and lack of objectivity may arise. For these reasons, I will also exclude myself from spearheading the work to be undertaken, as it is best left to those with fresh eyes untainted by the cut and thrust of elective politics, as has been the election time executive under your command, and even myself as mayor of Castries. Allow me to reserve the right, as is yours and all party members, of goodwill to assist the process as required and described following by a select committee of persons of unquestionable ability and reputation and integrity. For the reasons stated above, I have consulted with several qualified, objective, trained, experienced, and long-standing party supporters who are committed to the best interest of the United Workers' Party and, by extension, the nation of St. Lucia. These consultations should be geared towards creating a means for discovering the reasons for the humiliating defeat suffered by the United Workers' Party at the recent poll. This exercise must be conducted with the greatest discretion and employ scientific inquiry, and once completed, the results will be submitted to the executive team along with recommendations as to the way forward for our party. Hopefully, this process will be completed to inform the general membership in advance of the upcoming convention scheduled for October 2021, and without which the convention becomes a pointless exercise. I request that all fully support and cooperate with such an exercise, as it is urgently needed at this time. However, there is such a degree of commitment in this initiative, it may well proceed without the support and involvement of the United Workers' Party Central Executive. My reputation and performance as mayor of Castries over the last 5 years speaks for itself, as does my extensive experience and continuing participation in the politics of the nation at all levels, from the community and local government to the national level. Hopefully, my commitment to the United Workers' Party and to its future success is recognized and appreciated as this process goes into effect. And that was also CC'd to the former Prime Minister. And this is where we are, people trying to figure out what to do next within the United Workers' Party. And I don't know, your convention was in October, but it will be interesting to see what comes out of there and the humiliating defeat. And even though people speak of discretion and that's what they wanted, we've seen that there are leaked documents going on within the party, which also brings us to another point. If we're going to speak not just of politics but where we're headed, and you know, somewhat we've spoken a lot about the past and the former Prime Minister, and I think the question now becomes, what now? What are we doing? It's been 4 weeks, and let's put up the next image. People have been asking questions like, you know, where is the Prime Minister? Do we even have one? You know, some people are saying that they're not seeing the Prime Minister. He does post, you know, the images with the captions on Twitter, I think, which was well received in the social media platforms. But people want more. Even the hacks will say, you know, you're not seeing the Prime Minister and that kind of thing. And I think even some supporters of the SLP will be like, no, we haven't seen Philip J. Pierre in a while either. So when we spoke last week of a PR strategy that I think this administration desperately needs, I don't know if this new show with the press secretary is meant to do that, or it forms part of a strategy, but that alone does not a strategy make. And but I do think that it could be a step in the right direction, although I would have wanted, I don't know, maybe not the Prime Minister just yet if you're going to start off a show, because we've seen the Tuesdays show that Monday had when they were in opposition, and now I mean, we can agree to disagree on that. So when you have the Prime Minister speaking with the press secretary and speaking on the different issues, we have been asking what's the latest with that. We've heard a lot of accusations about, you know, changing offices and changing colors and how much money is spent on what, these things that, you know, the United Workers' Party, that I've said before, they just keep trying to send and hope that something sticks. So the Prime Minister now speaking on some of these issues as to what we're doing, where are we going, maybe even how's he feeling, and what can we expect. I think those were important questions, and he gave some answers to some of them.
Good day, St. Lucia, and welcome to our new show, Beyond the Headlines. I'm your host, Mondi Lewis. Today, my guest, the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Honorable Philip J. Pierre. I mean, St. Lucia, we have been in government for the last 4 weeks, and I know that it has been boots on the ground and people getting to work, and I am honored to serve as the press secretary to the Prime Minister, and I hope that we can have these interactive discussions, these discussions to educate, enlighten, to have full disclosure on what is going on in the government. Honorable Philip J. Pierre, welcome, and I'm really honored to have you as my first guest.
Good day, Monday. Good day, listeners. As you said, it's 4 weeks, but it sounds sometimes looks like 4 years.
Yes.
But I'm very pleased to be with you. And as you always said before you were in government, that we're going to be discussing and talking to people. So I hope that it won't be the last time speaking to you, but I'm sure other government ministers will be also speaking to you, because we've decided that we're going to be an open government. We're going to always speak the truth, even though sometimes the truth hurts.
Yes, and I really think St. Lucians will appreciate the transparency, the conversation, someone actually speaking with them as opposed to at them.
Even if they disagree with the side.
Yes, indeed. Honorable Pierre, your first 4 weeks, well, you're going into your 4th week. How has that been? We went through the campaign, the party won, and you're now the Prime Minister of St. Lucia. Have you even had a moment to just take it in?
Well, first of all, I'm saddened by the fact we have not been able to thank people. I mean, we have not really thanked people how we should. We've held no rallies, we haven't held any virtuals, we haven't even met the constituency groups, because we are trying to deal with the COVID situation. You know, we cancelled our motorcade, and so we've not really thanked the people. And I want to thank them again and tell them how we really are grateful, appreciative for the confidence that they placed in us in a huge way. I mean, this is probably one of the can go down in history as one of the biggest election victories. I want to thank the independents who came on board, both in the form of Stevenson King and Richard Fredericks, who are not members of our party, and their supporters trusted in them and voted for them. I want to tell them that we are very pleased that they decided to accept my invitation and join our cabinet. And again, it's an inclusive government. It's a government where we want to get ideas from every quarter, let the ideas contend for the benefit of the people of St. Lucia.
Okay, Mr. Pierre. But again, to your initial, tell St. Lucians how it has been as Prime. And I know you said that people, you and myself included, you haven't been able to take in what, or maybe perhaps this is what it is, but literally taking the victory and the mammoth task now placed on your shoulders.
It's mammoth, it's big, especially with COVID and with an empty treasury. That makes it even worse, because you found the COVID situation, and then our party, and for me in particular, I think about people, and every day I get to work, I think about how are people faring, how are people doing. What about the school children who have no devices? What about the people who lost their jobs? Every day that consumes me. What about the vendors and the small businesses and the larger businesses who have not been there anymore? That consumes me. So I get to work on mornings, and then I think of how I can assist these people, understanding the reality of COVID. That's a reality, a worldwide phenomenon, not only in St. Lucia. So I haven't even, I'll tell you something, I have not even had a celebratory dinner with my friends. I haven't done that. You understand? We're just on the job. And you have to deal with the rumors, the lies, the innuendo.
I was just going to ask you, how do you deal with the noise? There's a lot of noise. I think probably from the day you stepped into that office. How have you dealt with some of the noise, because people seem to be in full campaign mode, and haven't allowed you to even breathe for that 1 month whilst you're tackling COVID? And I know even from our own exchanges, the Monday was the election, the Tuesday morning we were in office bright and early. COVID. We were not in. We were at the Ministry of Infrastructure, but on work.
Wednesday.
We were at work, and it was just COVID-19,
and I haven't
health management.
And I haven't traveled.
And you haven't traveled.
I'm not going to the UN.
Yes.
I haven't traveled. I've been invited. I was supposed to be in Mexico on the next week I was supposed to be in Florida doing an address. I'm not going.
Yes, and the UN General Assembly.
The UN Assembly, I'm not going,
Yes.
you know, because I have to stay home. I have to stay home and deal with issues at home. You understand? So it's been rough. And the rumors.
And the rumors, I
Painted
mean,
my office red. Spent $100,000 refurbishing my office. I mean, these things are so untrue. I mean, it's really. I'll tell you something. And Monday, when these people believe that you ought not to say it, but when you have people constantly lying.
yes,
And I remember a guy called Goebbels, who dealt in the Nazi
propaganda.
propagandists. And then I understand that there's a particular station that has dedicated their life
Yes.
from now on to lie.
Yes.
And so they've dedicated their life in times of COVID to lie and spread propaganda. We have to deal with that. Spend $100,000 in my office. No, not true. Painted my office red.
yes,
Not true.
True.
You understand? The office was repainted and the furniture changed. The chair and the give and take. The desk is a desk that Honorable John Compton used. It was just
sanded. I saw it being sanded. I saw you have one wall that is a deep burgundy, and I was said
and that was always because it just to contrast the paint.
the paint.
Yeah.
Yes, one wall, one wall.
Only one. And it's not red, it's burgundy. And if you go to the financial center, the same thing is there. So I guess I painted the financial center
Yes,
red
you
too.
did.
Yeah, exactly. I found it. The same color is the financial center. Exactly the same color is the financial center.
Which predated you.
Which you found it there. Then the other rumor is I took government funds to build a hut. First of all, that's not true. And secondly, the hut was built for the policemen, to put the policemen who at the residence of the Prime Minister, my home, right? They're not there to deal with Philip J. Pierre. They're there to deal with the Prime Minister.
Yes,
If I wasn't Prime Minister, they would not be there.
yes.
Right? I have every bill. I have every bill that we built the hut with. And the design was to make it comfortable because, as I told you, my father was a policeman and I know what policemen go through, and I know guys working there 24 hours a day, they need some level of comfort.
Well, why did you choose to pay for it?
Because I know the experience of Kenny Anthony when he was Prime Minister, and he offered them, he said, then you come and take it. I didn't want to go through that.
Okay.
So I took my money and I built the hut. But the propagandists continue to say that I believe government funds. The other thing is that it's $1 million hut.
Wow.
That's the latest. That's not true. Secondly, the vehicles of the Prime Minister have not changed the vehicles. The vehicles are the exact vehicles that the former Prime Minister used.
Yes.
We just cleaned them. I just cleaned inside. We haven't changed it. Nothing has changed.
But I mean, I think it's so unfortunate that, especially during this time when I know the administration is so focused heavily, and I mean, St. Lucia, I can tell you this because I live it. Every waking hour, every other hour is to deal with COVID-19.
And every cent counts.
Yes. And everyone has been asked to make sacrifices.
Exactly. And some of the ministers are annoyed.
Yes.
They were annoyed at me, Every cent counts.
Everyone has been asked to make sacrifices in this new transition to, even just the basics, whether it is to get a computer or to get furniture for your office. We've all cut back, knowing that COVID-19 is the challenge for St. Lucia. It's just very unfortunate that this is the focus of some people of the opposition right now when we have COVID-19 to deal with. So going straight into that, Honorable, COVID-19, I hear you say it's number 1, number 2, and number 3 priority of this administration. What did you find coming in?
But Moni, before we go there, we've had some successes for our 4 weeks. People seem to have forgotten that. Right?
Yes.
We're probably the first government that has kept promises immediately after.
Indeed.
Right? We said we'll pay facility fees.
Yes.
Now, people rubbish it, some people, for 2 reasons. Some of them because probably they haven't felt it, and secondly, because they are just being deliberately mischievous. political mischief as they vow to do for the next 5 years. But I have trust in the people of St. Lucia. I get attacked for saying that, but I have trust in them. We paid for CD fees.
$2.8 million.
Yes. You don't understand a parent who has 5 children, or 4, say 5 children, going to school, and they have to find sometimes 2 mature adults before his child to enter school.
But you're saying 2 and you're saying 5 and 4 children, Mr. Honorable. But I mean, what about those if just the 1 or the 2? It was my brother and I, and sometimes 2 was difficult to find.
And you know, and people rubbish that and laugh at it and try their best to make it to sound as if it didn't exist. It's reality.
Yes.
We've paid that.
Yes. We
also forgot, and I'll tell you how we got the money to pay it. Because they'll tell you, oh, you all said you all have money and you'll pay it. I'll tell you how they got the money. And that's how I want to be transparent to people in Russia. I'll tell you why I got the money to pay it. Right? Then we have a school support system that we help in parents.
Yes, the Educational Assistance Program through SSDF.
SSDF. Mm-hmm. We had to do that. We have cash flow issues, so we had to stagger it, and now we're doing it. We've put in that economy $2.8 million already, basically to go for people projects, not consultants.
Yes.
And the time will come when I will tell you the history of consultants. You know, we've been dealing with COVID, so we have that time to talk to people about really what went on in government in St. Lucia.
Yes.
But the time will come. The millions of dollars paid to consultants, the same people. You know, the overcosting of projects. You understand? The money that was paid to political consultants. You understand? We've not got there. Look at you. Look what I did to you. And
I know, St. Lucia's, we're not even going to speak about that.
Forgive me for that. You understand? And these things are on the record.
Yes.
You know, we're not going to compare.
That's why they're not even bothering leaking my contract.
Yeah.
It's laughable.
The kind of things that we did, right? I've given you the joke about my own salary, which is not going in now. So the point I'm making to you is that we've done all these things. So secondly, what we've done is that we've given people a sense of fairness.
Yes.
All right? Because we have to improve the quality of life, the people who matter. You understand? The people who need it the most. I'll tell you how we got the money to do it. There was $1 million put aside by the last government to start to rise the DCA. I think that's a priority.
Okay.
Yes.
What was the rationale for that?
To make the DCA a statutory board.
Okay.
$1 million.
$1 million. To put something into legislation?
Yes, I mean the consultant. Yes.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Then, when I talk about the land transfers, the money that was when I talk about the money that was spent in organizations like NAPS, and we're going to get there. So I had to, because there's a new Finance Act that almost ties the hands of the Minister of Finance. So you have to go all around. You understand? We have to talk about the $650,000 that was spent in 1 week in a constituency. 1 week. $650,000 spent in 1 week in a constituency.
And juxtapose that to Victoria Hospital Respiratory.
Yeah.
Only now getting a phone infrastructure.
You know, and they laugh. And I heard somebody that sent it rubbish it. They said, oh, all what they had to say is there was no phones at the thing. You think somebody can? At the same time, the roof was still leaking.
Yes.
You think somebody who wants people to take them to vote for them can see that the only thing they can boast about there was no communications in the hospital? Do you think that's real in this time?
Yes.
At the time when you have people in isolation, you have people that need doctors, so you can't communicate. Somebody's in isolation, they can't communicate with the doctor or the nurse, but you say that's nothing.
Yes.
You rubbish it because you want to be political, and you haven't understood that you've lost, you've been rejected by the people, and go back and reorganize and come back.
Yes.
So you think, do like us. We lost.
Now, it's because I know some people were asking, where is the Prime Minister? We're not seeing him, we're not hearing from him. And, when you get an understanding or hearing the Prime Minister speak of things as you come into the administration, you come into the office as Prime Minister, you can say what you want when you're in opposition mostly, but when you give us the reality of what you have found, I think that too is interesting. And some of the achievements you cannot deny with the facilities, the facility fees and the bursary, what's happening now, even today in the House. And you could tell there is some progress being made. But watching this, I don't think it will be enough. And I think at least the Prime Minister understands that there's a station that their only goal is to just lie and do what they have to do. But I don't think it's sustainable to have a show where you defend every single thing being said about you. Like I said, the need for a strategy is it's needed. There's a space for it. There's a void that I think needs to be filled. But all in all, seeing the Prime Minister speak on certain things, and of course he spoke about COVID and everything else, but this clip I think really interested me because for the first time you could hear some of the defenses, hear some of what were the lies, and I think it also made it humanizing when he spoke of Dr. Kenny Anthony, seeing what he had went through and what he has decided to do himself. When you see former Prime Minister Alan Shastney, from the moment he got to be Prime Minister, traveling everywhere, COVID COVID is still just just traveling to different places, going to meetings and everything. And I remember, if you do too, people were saying, where is the Prime Minister? Where is he and why is he traveling so much from the last time? Although we need to be careful that just doing the absolute opposite of Shastney won't do it either. That you probably need to go out when it is necessary and that sort of thing. So the differences are there, and for whatever you may think, I do believe hearing the Prime Minister once in a while just speak to us in clear terms about what's going on, what we have found, the Treasury, the Treasury being empty and having to take money. That's crazy. $1 million to statutarize the customs, I think the borders and everything else, and seeing all of this money being wasted when you need to deal with COVID. I think in that way it was the right way to go. And of course I'm looking forward to some of the other topics that Mondi Lewis and the other guests that they're going to have, letting people know what exactly is going on. So I'll give not that it's in my position, but we're all citizens, and I think I'll give it a sort of passing grade, although I'd want to see Pip back in the suits. I think I'd want to see that. Well, I think that is the first segment. We'll be right back with more.
I can't stay. Tell them that one I need. Don't you know your love is so divine? And I'm wanting you, girl. Missing you, wanting you, girl. Say, don't you know your love is?
I want some melody.
And I'm wanting you, girl. Listen. Tell them that one I need. Passing to the camera, got to the mentality. The picture in my head is me and you holding on. Don't want that to come up with some sweet little song. Different people can hold you like a teacher wife for Brandon the younger. But take your time, second long because we are younger. I don't like back and I neither confusion. Rush into this thing, then things will be wrong still. Don't you know your love is so divine? And I'm wanting you, girl. Missing you, wanting you, girl.
We can win this war. Get vaccinated. We're taking our life back. Get vaccinated. The COVID-19 vaccination drive is mobile and coming to you. Taking the 2 doses of the safe and effective AstraZeneca vaccine is our part to take St. Lucia back. Visit the Ministry of Health and Wellness and Bureau of Health Education Facebook pages to find out the vaccination time and venue nearest to you. Bring personal identification, and if you already have your first dose, bring your COVID-19 vaccination card when getting the second. Get vaccinated. This message is brought to you by the Bureau of Health Education of the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Hi there, this is
Exclusive
You're watching UTV, TV for you.
I can't stay.
So welcome back. Thank you very much for joining us. I don't know if you have not heard what has been going on in our schools with the online classrooms. It's revealing, and I have to say kudos to the teachers. I've spoken about it before, that so many of them are my friends, and at one point I also wanted to be a teacher. You know, I felt I could, you know, speak to students and, you know, bestow some knowledge of whatever I've learned, and, you know, that kind of thing. But mama to do what God is by now, I think I'm done with that. But I do respect you guys more now than ever before. So we're going to start there, and there are different people already, you know, seeing it and hearing what has happened. But first, let's hear Claudius Francis, because there are certain things within the online classroom that I hadn't even really thought of. I think Alan Splant, who is the president of the Students Association, National Students Council, spoke about it before, that there is a way that people bully. You know, if you're on a Zoom call, you know what that is. If you're on Zoom and people see your background, or maybe they laugh at your house or laugh at the surroundings and that sort of thing, and that too would affect a child. And I think, you know, it's a sad reality, but this is just some parts of the online classroom problems that we're seeing.
The reopening of school today that has not already been said and written on Facebook, except to say that one of these days we are going to reap the whirlwind that we are sowing, when on every occasion we seek to make excuses for bad behavior. It would seem, in this country at least, so long as you are young, no responsibility attaches to you. Everything, and the vast majority of our young people are enterprising go-getters. But it would seem in this country that some young people can do no wrong. Anytime they do something that remotely resembles a wrong, we are the quickest to come and say, not their fault, it's the teacher's fault. We look for all sorts of excuses. Some of the things that were said to teachers today, little wonder that some teachers required the cameras to be turned on. Whoops! Who tell teachers to ask that? That's another story again. How dare the teachers ask that? Huh? Don't you know we have children in houses that are not acceptable to be seen on camera? But let me tell you, those children are so device literate. They know exactly how to get virtual backgrounds that you don't see the house at all. And you should, no matter what your station in life, you should never be ashamed of where you came from. Never. And those of us who are teaching our children to be ashamed of the houses that they live in, it's still home. Not everybody has a house to call home. We wish everybody could live in decent, what we refer to as decent housing. Unfortunately, you don't. And rather than teach the children to appreciate what they have, we are telling them to be ashamed, so ashamed that don't bother to invite any of your friends home. Don't show your house in any photograph. That's what we're teaching our children now. You know, I remember growing up, when we went to library, there were so many of us in the house. I don't recall when I went to the library during the holidays ever sleeping on a bed. We slept on the floor. That was the most exciting thing for us. We woke up in the morning and put out on the grass what we used to call the bedding that we slept on, so that it can air out and get the sun to return for another night's sleep. Growing up that way pushed us to excel. We wanted to do better. That's not what we are teaching our children today. We are teaching them the struggles of the parents are not enough. Be ashamed of where you are. And our teachers got abused today. Not just from the students. As bad as what some of the students said to the teachers, in my humble view, the real abuse came from Facebook, where parents who ought to know better were writing and saying things as if it's the teachers, society to blame. It's always easy to blame. And yes, society has failed a lot of our young people. But that should be a wake-up call to get up and get. Nothing changes by just sitting down. In some cases, we have been told, I got a call from one principal who actually did his own investigation and was able to trace one of those individuals who hacked into the system. That will be passed on to the police tomorrow. But you think our young people, that's what he had to be doing, hacking. There were people on the virtual platform smoking, others asking teachers for sexual favors, if favors it is, others expressing their disgust at even being there. What the hell they were doing there? That's what they were saying. They weren't using those kind words. You know. And we wonder why we are where we are.
And I think there that Claudius is bringing up some excellent points, and because it seems that he forgot the word, you know, when you have the things to sleep on, it's cabin. That's how I know it. Suni cabanu. And for me, my hair wasn't relaxed, so you know when you have your natural hair, the little things just sticking it, so you have to make sure you move all. But at the same time, when you think of students, I think, and children at that point, you do tend to try to put it back to yourself when you were where you were at that point. I know what it is to be okay with where you are, even though, you know, it raining a little bit and the yard will just flood and frogs all over the place and everything. You'll be like, hey, mommy, I have a swimming pool. You know, you don't know until, you know, you get older and you realize that not everybody is living like you, and you know, it gets to a point where, yeah, I understand some of the people that say that they can be embarrassed of these things when you do not know who you are and you're not self-actualized. You are a 15, 16, 17-year-old looking on at other people and wanting to fit in. And you know, from my own experiences, I do believe that there is that sort of problem in schools, and you know, it's not something that's just happened. It's just human nature. At a certain point, you want to fit in, you want to be like everybody else, you want to have what everybody else has, and when you feel like you're lesser than, there is some shame that comes with that. So you know, and until you grow into yourself, until you find what makes somebody you know, an actual person, until you learn of your own character, these are the things that matter. But I don't think we should just, you know, sort of ridicule students for feeling, or young people feeling the way that they do. And also with the other issue of where we are with the schools, I know that there are 4,000 laptops that are to be given to students. So once again, a step in the right direction with the online classes. And now we are seeing, you know, what many teachers have complained about, people who are trying the best that they can, trying to deal with the technology themselves. And you would think that, hey, in the classrooms, there's always the class clown or somebody trying to disrupt. Sometimes you can put them out, or, you know, that kind of thing that happens. But what I saw yesterday didn't seem to be that. There seemed to be some kind of darkness, vitriol being directed at the teachers. And I think right now, you know, we need to hear what the education authorities have to say about it.
In the COVID-19 pandemic era, electronic devices like smartphones and laptop computers keep...
Monday, September 13 was strange enough, without the usual excitement of meticulously planned first day of school pictures and mingling with new classmates. Thousands of students woke up and logged in to their online learning classes that was forced due to the coronavirus pandemic. Or at least they tried. Various disruptions from video conferencing platform Zoom hampered the digital rollout, for which schools have spent months preparing for. Reports of unsavory and disrespectful behavior, including sexual advances made to teachers, resulted in the disruption of classes, both at primary and secondary school levels. It was reported across the board, according to the National Principal Association.
I think it's necessary that the Ministry of Education send out a strong warning to the students and those hackers, I would say, who are invading and disrupting the smooth running of online instructions. I think at some point the police should be involved as well, because some of the behaviors led on is more or less illegal.
Other stakeholders within the system, including the St. Lucia Teachers Union and education officers, also reached out to the Ministry of Education in that regard.
It is very disturbing, and it's not encouraging at this time, the first day of school, in online instructions, that principals and teachers are facing such reckless behavior. So the Ministry of Education, based on the reports, the feedback I got from the Chief Education Officer, they are aware, and they, I think more or less 1 or 2 incidents took place in the Zoom, during Zoom meetings, or the Zoom platform.
The National Principals Association highlighted that guidelines will be submitted to all schools to mitigate the unacceptable behavior displayed during online learning.
It is very unfortunate, and I can tell you across the education sector, schools, secondary, both secondary and primary, it more or less happens in secondary schools. However, we are all feeling the pain and the stress of these incidents on our teachers and principals, and it is of great concern. So we'll be monitoring, and we're hoping that the actions taken by the Ministry of Education will help resolve some of them.
In addition, reports have also surfaced on social media in which students who live in vulnerable situations are being exposed by other students during online instructions. The living conditions of students affected have been circulating on social media. The situation on Monday, September 13, was total chaos for teachers.
I'll continue to liaise with my principals as well as the Chief Education Officer to monitor the way forward that it needs to such disrespectful and disruptive behavior by, I would say, some criminal elements, as well as some students who need some more supervision and guidance at home.
The Ministry of Education IT department will be meeting with Zoom administrators in an effort to bring the matter under control. Cecil Actil, MBC Prime.
So that's what education authorities have to say on it. But just in case you haven't seen it, and the reason why some people are so concerned about what they're seeing, let's take a look at some of the videos that came out of those online classes. Just go ahead.
As we would all like to be, is to be able to control ourselves. As we would all.
Don't worry, we have you. You could pretend, you could hide, you can disguise, you could do it in every form and fashion. But we have you. We know exactly how to come and get you. You're useless. That's what you are. You're a sad, useless person.
I think with this one, a lot of people have their own opinions on it because you can see secondary school students smoking and the response of the teacher calling that person useless. And, you know, some people have differing opinions on it because when you're a teacher, but you're also human too, you know, if you want to give some leeway to the teacher for her reaction to that and, you know, the disrespect to the class and to herself, should she have been, you know, different? Should she have handled it differently? What do you do then, you know, with that situation? And, you know, we are going to open the lines for those calls and to hear, you know, what do we do with this as a society, as a country, as a parent? Where do you go? What do you do? What do you see? And for those people that find themselves making sure that, you know, your children are trying to be in good company and all of that, you send them to school in the way that they tell you to, in the only way available, and that is the atmosphere there. But just so we understand, let's take a look at some of the other videos, the other things that came out of that.
You try again. I'm smelling you ugly. It seems your mind I don't want to ask, that's how you beat your own story. I think I'm going to remove my thing. I really can't. Miss, one number.
Same. Go try that. We them children are
if these children have to feel like I'm moving in that group. Oh, shut your mother. Where are your parents? Where are these kids' parents? In your ass.
You all have better thing to do. This is.
Shut your ass.
Good.
I go die. You just leave your money as a.
Again, some very concerning things. Let's take our first call. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, Trisha. How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm okay. I just wanted to make a quick comment on the issue of children and the access to online learning. I think some of the things that we have to discuss is that it's not a new phenomenon for students to be online and students as well as teachers to be online. And so they must have very clear guidelines as to what teachers ought to do or what students, the kinds of behaviors that students are supposed to engage in. But also keep in mind that many of those young students do not have parental guidance during that time. Most parents are at home, most parents are at work, and so they may not be able to give the type of intervention that is necessary. And so I think it's now the time that placing the responsibility on those minors is something that we can think about, because of course we're dealing with children and we know those kind of deviant behaviors will exist. So what do we do and how we rehabilitate the society, how we have the society to think in a way, because these are difficult times that we're dealing with right now, but how do we train our children and the kind of behaviors and conduct, and considering a lot of students already have difficulty in being online in the very first instance. The other aspect is in terms of the teachers. We have to remember as adults, it is our role as well and responsibility to protect the other minors. So it's a call out for the teachers as well, that when you come across those kind of disruptive behaviors, if you're using Zoom or you're using Blackboard, that there are mechanisms. You can mute the student, you can delete the student, you can place the student in, I think it's the whole in room. And so there's lots of things, because I can only imagine the trauma that other students may have experienced in that kind of forum, because it's the first day of school. They were not expecting that kind of behavior. And so, yes, these things will happen. Why? Because we were not aware that Zoom can be hacked into, that Blackboard can be hacked into, not even locally, but internationally as well. These things do occur. And so I believe that the ministry have to start doing that. If the training hasn't been done, they have to start the training, so that the teachers, we're not placing the responsibility not only on the parents, because some of them are not there, but teachers have to become more aware.
But the parents aren't also there in the actual physical classrooms?
I beg pardon?
The parents aren't there as well in the physical classrooms. The students are just expected to, treat each other and the teacher with respect.
Yes, but yes, of course we have, and this is what we teach our children, to be ethical when they were classes, to conduct themselves in a particular way, not only virtually, but in the physical space as well. But what we need to recognize is that these things will happen. But how do we mitigate such kind of behaviors and protect our children from that? Because there have been a number of cases where persons have done it, not only in St. Lucia but other countries as well, where these things do happen. People can hack into those sessions. And so the teachers have to become aware of what do I do when I'm placed in those kinds of situations. Do I continue having the dialogue with the person that has disrupted the classroom? Do I mute them? Do I restart the session? And I think these are the things that we need to, the kind of possible solutions to those kind of claims that some of the things that we can do. We have to do that, because these things will occur. And if we're looking at the COVID numbers, and chances are that students may be there perhaps longer than we assume, these are the things that we have to. So yes, it happened, and perhaps it may have been happening before, but now it's in the public space that we have to become more aware about it.
So what are your thoughts to what how the teacher responded to the student smoking?
I think the teacher, as any individual, was alarmed by it, because she did not expect a student or anybody to hack into a system. So one of the things, as I said before, teachers should have been trained about those things. How do you prepare yourself? Because these things can happen. Particularly when we look at in terms of the vulnerability of students. Most of the students are minors. So anybody could have come in and put in perhaps explicit stuff that students should not be open to. So we could imagine, as I said before, how the young students there, the minors, how they responded to it. So I do understand the position that teachers are with right now in terms of the virtual space. I mean, if somebody comes in a room, in a physical room, you have the opportunity to do something, you might shut the door or something. But in a virtual space, it's very different. And teachers have to be prepared. That's all I'm trying to harp on, that you have to be prepared, because these are the things that can happen. They have had cases where persons have come into a class and started showing pornographic scenes. So these are the things that you have to be alert with. And once you notice that there is any kind of infringement in your classroom, classroom setting, you have the right to log off. Because in a Zoom meeting, if you're the host, you can log off and then request that your students log back in. And you can perhaps put a block on the person that may have done that. And so we're just thinking tentatively when these things happen, because yes, you will deal with the legislation part, in persons doing that. Hacking is an offense in and of itself. And I'm hoping that St. Lucia is thinking about those kinds of computer misuse acts, because these things, this is the world that we're living in right now, and we have to make and place the mechanisms in place. So the ministry and the Minister of Education has to think a little bit abroad in terms of how they're going to deal with those kinds of situations, because we want to protect children. We don't want children in class and all of a sudden these things do happen and disrupt their, because we don't know. The strangest thing when I saw it is how does a child minus the other students in the class, and I could hear them saying, well, that's not the way you behave. So you can hear that the students know that it is bad behavior and it's unacceptable behavior. And so we have to look at ways that we cultivate that culture that when we're in that virtual space, some of the behaviors, and for the teachers particularly, to how they are and how they protect themselves and they protect the students. I think that's my point.
Thank you very
so
much,
Bye-bye.
Paula. I appreciate that. And for those people like yourselves who would say, maybe these people need some help, maybe the teachers need to know how to deal with the technology better. There are people who would also say, stop making excuses for these children. These kind of things. So are we just absolving students because they're young and probably don't know any better? And, is this something that we should be doing? So it's not an easy thing, I imagine, to do, because we're hearing so many different people having these conversations. Teachers have been saying, you see what I was telling y'all, not now I was telling y'all that is children have no respect. That's what they've been saying for a very long time. And of course, you are also right. With COVID and people being stuck in, does that have some kind of frustration, and, the students lash out in that way? Everybody is in a very, very strange place. But you're also correct. I was a prefect myself. I remember, I don't like to see these things. I don't like to fight. I fought twice in school. I ain't going to tell you if they beat me or if I beat the person, but that's not the point. But I do know that there are some times when, certain frustrations, your own things at home, whatever it is, it's school. And for some, it's just another, if it was a physical classroom, you'd always have the class clown doing a madness or whatever, but I just do not see it as being that on that online classroom. That was something else. I'll tell the teachers, don't touch my child, don't tell my child nothing, and the children know that too, so they go to their parents. It's a whole, it's our culture, it's what we have known, and I think maybe like Claudia said, we're just reaping what we have sown, and that's what we're going to deal with. But on the other issue for me is also the technology. I imagine if something like that has to happen and the school is involved in Ministry of Education, that there would be an IT person who's a whiz enough to figure out who did this and what was the hacking person, and maybe their email address, try to get the identity. And with what I understand, it was only one principal who did so with their own personal investigation. So it does also reflect a sort of void in the system, in a technological way, in trying to solve some of these problems. And again, listening to these things, you would have to figure out what the education ministry, what are they going to do about it?
The systems of operation from the Ministry of Education standpoint, and also the district offices, and from the different schools, I must say that I'm very satisfied with the level of operations that we had in the process. So this first day of school, so the blended approach, okay, the distributed approach, I must say generally it has been a success. We know everything is not perfect, and then because of this, then there were a few other variables that may have affected certain schools or certain districts, but generally I am very satisfied with what we are hearing in terms of the first day of school and the number of children who were able to access the instructions that were being provided for them.
However, Mr. Sipal stated his displeasure at several unsavory incidents by hackers and other individuals which disrupted the instruction process for several students and teachers today.
We had a number of calls where some persons hacked into the system, and then the instructional process that was going on, they disturbed that process. We were told that it may be some students themselves, or it may be persons from the outside. So then that did disturb the process today. And then some teachers were a little, they were not comfortable to continue lessons because of the level of disruption that was being created. So I just want to say out there to either the persons who may not be part of the education system, and then they are deliberately causing the disruption, depriving the children the opportunity to learn. I want to call on them to please desist from doing that. And I also want to call on the students themselves who may be taking part in the process to ask them to think before they do what they are doing. Think of the actions, think of they are not just simply affecting themselves, but they are also depriving the rest of the class the opportunity to learn. So in the process, let me ask and let me state here that the Ministry of Education, we will be having a meeting tomorrow, God's willing, Tuesday, with Mr. Venner, who is the head of IT, and then we will be going through the process with some of the persons who are the point persons for the different Zoom platforms, and then now we are going to go through the process in terms of how we can address that matter. But at the same time, let me tell the students or the other persons, please desist from doing that, because we will be tracking you down, and then depending on what the situation is and the extent of the situation, then we may have to take further action. So please, I'm asking you, the nation at large, let us do what we are supposed to do to allow the children to get the level of education they deserve.
Okay. So once again, we're hearing that just today there will be another meeting, and they will be speaking with the IT person and trying to figure out who did what. But as we end the show, I just want to let you know, and almost you cannot even say how you would feel as a teacher watching it or how you would react. It's almost like, when you say, if somebody ever hit me, I'll do this or that kind of thing. When it does happen, but for the teachers, I would encourage them to keep on doing your jobs. I know that it's very hard. People like Petal James, Lorik Etienne, dear friends of mine who are teachers, and I know that it's something that you love to do and you want to help students and help them grow. So it's a difficult time. But just to go back on that, there was one of the videos that I found so despicable, not just as a teacher but also as a woman. It's something that you would never want to hear anybody say to you in that way, far less a child that probably you could be their mother, finding it within themselves to say this to a person.
I suck my dick real good, miss. All I like to tell you, miss, that some girls, miss. I did not suck my dick real good, miss.
So, like I said, despicable stuff, and also putting his private part there for the teacher to see, for the class to see. It's sick. It's sick. And if anything else, it's something that should have us concerned enough to really deal into some mental wellness, mental illness into some of these children, because if you feel you could do that and there shouldn't be any repercussions and people supposed to, well, it's not their fault. Nah, that's sick, no matter what age. And I feel really sorry for the teacher that had to go through that. I imagine it's not a good thing to go through, but like I said, we will continue to see what's happening with this situation, what came out of the meeting today, what the education minister will be saying, the teachers, probably the parents. Do we have a parents association there? What are you guys saying? I'm not a parent, so I cannot speak directly to it, but I don't think you need to be one to just look at when something is absolutely wrong. And like I say, we'll continue to have these discussions as the time goes on, but we have come to the end of the show. I want to thank you very, very much for joining us as always, and I hope to see you tomorrow at 11, same time, same place, but until then, have a great one.
I can't stay. My